Hey, we're going to get started. You see the picture of the bell?
Yeah.
And if I can turn to Dr. Ken, if you want to go ahead and ring the real thing.
Okay.
And maybe share with us what the meaning of that bell is.
Well, this bell comes from Switzerland. My sister purchased it, Jane, she's on to this, and it's a cowbell. And if you ever go to Switzerland and go to B&B in a rural area, you'll see lots of them. That means you get up and get your breakfast. It's a pretty hard, it's a pretty loud noise. And then we have about half a dozen cows out there in the meadow. It sounds like an instrument. It's a little cacophony with it, but anyhow, it's very entertaining. And the other thing, we were on an air balloon one time. We were in Switzerland and we couldn't see the cows, but we could hear them. We knew where they were. So yeah, that's part of the meaning, right? Call to order.
Yes, Ken, thank you. I'm looking for my speakers here to turn them up here at my end a little bit. We want to say welcome to everyone. We're glad to have everyone here, and we're looking forward as our time together goes on. We'll probably have more people jumping in on our virtual family reunion. This is our second year that we've had this. We're really looking forward to next year, our 100th anniversary family reunion, which will be in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And I'm not going to steal any of Dave's thunder from that. We'll hear more about next year's reunion later in our get-together here. What I'd like, though, is if we would all just for a moment pause for an opening word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessing of family. We thank you for how you blessed us and multiplied us tremendously as we're all across North America and Europe and around the world. We commit this time to you, and we ask that it would be a fruitful time and enjoyable and entertaining time where we learn some new things and make some new friends and learn and catch up with some relatives that maybe we haven't seen for a while. We commit all this to you in your son's name. Amen. So a couple of ground rules. I would encourage that everybody look in the lower left part of your screen. You should see a mute icon, looks like a microphone. I think for everybody's benefit, if we stay muted, that helps cut down on background noise and feedback through the computer and things like that. It'll just make for a little more enjoyable time for everyone. We're going to have at the end of our get together a question and answer session, Q&A time. So that'll be the time to catch up, ask questions, make comments. I'm sure that with Linda, our featured speaker, there will be a lot that people will want to ask afterward. We found that out last year with cousin Dennis Oberholzer after he shared. We probably spent more time in Q&A than we did in the actual presentation. And speaking of presentations, you may have seen on our website earlier in the year, we did have from the B family of the larger Brubaker family, Rachel Brubaker was going to also be one of our featured speakers. Unfortunately, she had a family health situation that has come up that precludes her from being able to share with us today, and hopefully we'll have her back in the future. But we're pleased to have Linda Brubaker. We'll hear more from her later. I'll confess, I'm not super Zoom literate. Luann, one of our board members, and I think she shows up as Nefta or Neftra on her screen. She's our Zoom maven for today. And if anybody has any problems or issues, I trust that she'll be able to help us out. You'll see at the bottom of your screen, there's also a chat feature. If anybody during the course of our get together, if it's helpful, please go ahead and weigh in on the chat feature. We'll have people keeping their eyes peeled to address any questions or comments that come up. And if we don't, we'll try to pick them up at the end of our get together. So the next thing I'd like to do is just take a moment to make mention about board member Bertha Brubacher. She just recently passed away. Bertha, for many, many years, gave selflessly for the benefit of the family association. Her husband, the late Dr., or I'm sorry, I'm mixing people up here, scratch that, but her husband, Ben, was a board member also. And he was very, very active for us, keeping an eye out on family cemeteries and advocating for keeping them preserved or maintained. And Bertha just recently passed away, and I just wanted to take a moment to make mention of that and recognize that. And also, I understand there might be one or two people in the group today that would like to have a moment to share a word. And so I'll yield the floor or the microphone to them.
I need to unmute. Okay, Doug, I'll be happy to give a tribute. I'm Jane Brubaker Barge, and Ben would be a second cousin of my family.
Where did you put the muffins? Oh,
Are we on?
Yeah, we hear you, Jane. That was somebody else's mic picking something up. If they have muffins, I hope they share them with everyone.
Okay.
sorry,
All right.
that was me. I didn't know you could hear me.
Okay, I'll continue. I enjoyed many years, first just coming to the reunions with my parents, then later began working together with Bertha on the Brubaker Committee for Reunions. With her gracious, joyful spirit, she always made the cousins coming to the Brubaker reunion feel welcomed as she greeted and got their name tags on. Always beautiful flowers. Remember how she'd decorate our tables for mealtime. And this started back when we met at the Church of the Apostles Fellowship Hall on the original Brubaker land. Bertha, thanks for the many years of contributions to our local Brubaker Families Reunion. And I was at the visitation, gave Ben our condolences from all our cousins. He thanked me, and I thanked him for all he has done too. He has done so much for our families. So thank you all.
Jane, thank you for that. The next thing we're going to do then, as I said, I'm not real Zoom literate, but I'm kind of learning on the fly here. I have another videotape that I would like to share. This is of Dr. Warren Brubaker. He just passed away in the past year, and he was our board chair for many, many years. Again, he and his late wife gave selflessly for such a long time. He always had a presentation about flags that are significant to the larger Brubaker family. And what I'll do is I'll share this. It's about an 11 or 12 minute video of Warren sharing about the flags.
This line of flags here, we accumulated over a number of years. And there are a couple of them that are really very important. Is the second one here, the goose. Actually, it's the swan. The second one from the end is a dove purple made in a town called Vadenville. Now, we added the American flag because we didn't want to seem rebellious. And the one in the middle, obviously, is the Swiss flag. And the one next to it is the flag of the Canton of Zurich. Actually, this one was brought in, and it was a gift to our group from a group of Brubakers from Michigan, of the H family. They created the flag and brought it in and presented it to us. I have never seen anything quite like it, but that's from the H family in Michigan. Now let me get to a couple of the ones that I think are particularly relevant. The white swan, second one here, is the flag of the community of Horgan, which is where most of the Brubakers, where a lot of the Brubakers in Switzerland lived in the Horgen area, as did a lot of them live in the Wadensburg area, which is the Belfast down in the end. Switzerland is a country of many, many cantons and smaller communities, and they pride themselves in their democratic form of government. Many major issues with Switzerland are settled when they call a community meeting, and they vote by hand holding their hands up in the air. The flags that are relevant to this are the Horgen flag and the Wadensburg flag. There are neighboring communities on the Lake Zurich. They're located about halfway from the origins of the lake and the city of Zurich, which is the outflow site of the lake, and the lower end of the lake, which is quite deep. The thing that's really relevant here is how we came by these flags, and they are basically gifts to our organization by a fellow by the name of Robert Brubaker. And the next 5 or 10 minutes I'm going to spend talking about Robert Brubaker, because he was the one who felt that we needed the flag, because he was so enamored with the form of government in Switzerland that he thought we should know a lot about it in order we can truly proud of our origins. I have to tell you a little bit about Robert Brubaker. You may find him interesting. He's passed away in
Okay.
1900.
Okay, I'm in.
My father was sort of in the 40s and 50s. He went to Horgen to see where these Brubakers came from and what he could find out about them. So he got a phone book, and he was quite fluent in Pennsylvania Dutch. So he started finding names Brubaker and dialing the numbers, and finally ended up with talking with a fellow who was Robert Brubaker. And Robert Brubaker was a resident of Horgen, and he actually ran a factory where he manufactured knitting equipment for knitting mills, and he repaired these things. He had a very nice business. But at any rate, my dad and he corresponded periodically, and Robert Brubaker, the one I'm referring to, was his son. The senior Brubaker, who was Robert, who my dad first contacted, sent his son, Robert, to Paris to get educated. So that was very natural. And he went to Paris to do his studies. This was in the late 30s. My father received a call from his father and asked if he would be sort of a surrogate dad for Robert, because he was in Paris. The Nazis were swarming through Germany, and he was very concerned about being picked up by the Germans conscripted into the German army, and he wanted to flee. So my dad said, sure. So Robert Brubaker, who provided us these flags, fled Paris, came to the United States. My dad helped him get some of his education, enrolled him in Johns Hopkins, where he was a very good student. And I first got to know him when he would come to our place for dinner occasionally. And I thought he was sort of a snooty character who didn't seem very warm, and he fooled around with all these languages. I couldn't figure out what it was all about. But at any rate, he completed his education at Johns Hopkins, and in the process, he developed a lung infection, and he was hospitalized in Baltimore. And there he met a nurse, Eugenia, and he married her. And there he is in the United States. He was still afraid to try to go back to Switzerland. So he actually got a job with some drug companies that were in, and share this with your group that has the annual reunions. So he said, I have contracted with a flag maker from Glarus, Canton in Switzerland, and I'm sending you these flags. So that's how we came by the flags. He decided we needed them. I didn't request them of him, but that explains the swan, which is the flag of Oregon, where Robert Brubaker was raised. We had spent a fair number of visits in Oregon. My daughter and I went swimming in Lake Erie, which is right off the coast of Oregon, and it was cold as sin. This is ice water. But you could see the swans. That flag was actually created in the early 1400s because of Oregon being so famous for the swans. And we also visited Zanesville quite a bit. The whole Oregon, Zanesville, right along the lake, and they are all in the canton of Uri. And of course, it's all in Switzerland. So I wanted to let you know how the flags got here. It was not any of our idea, it was Bob's idea. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was a wonderful fellow, and we're proud to have him.
My apologies, that's my Zoom amateurism there. I thought if I muted you would still be able to hear the audio to that. Next, we're going to look to our treasurer, Jim Brubaker, to share a few minutes, the treasurer's report.
Hello, Brubaker cousins. Can you hear me? I hope so.
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm happy to report that we're in very strong financial position. As of July 31st, we have $31,073, $10,362 in checking accounts, and $20,711 in the CD. In the last 12 months since we met, there hasn't been a lot of activity due to the conditions that we're all facing, but we did have $400 or $300 in income, primarily from the sale of Brubaker merchandise. And we had $709 in expenses that was primarily related to website security and maintenance. So that's pretty much the substance of where we stand, and we're in strong financial shape. So that's my report, Doug, unless there's anything else you'd like me to talk about.
Thank you, Jim. Some of you might ask what money would be used for. We are looking in the future to bring out a new book sometime. And a lot of that funding there that's available would be put toward that. Those of you that are familiar with the books that have been published over the years, the latest publication dates back to like somewhere around 1954. I think the Ferris Brubaker Gibble book, the blue book that a lot of people are familiar with. And so we recognize that there's a need to update this. We're just trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to go about it, because the book might be the thickness of an old Sears and Roebuck catalog, or it might be as thick as an encyclopedia set. So we're still trying to figure those things out. We've had people over the years have responded to our notes on the family website, people that are interested in possibly helping out with this. And we have all of you archived, and one of these days we're gonna put together an initiative and get caught up with that. Next, I'd like to turn the mic over to our cousin Dave Brubaker up in Ontario. He's going to be taking a few minutes to share with us about next year's upcoming reunion, which will be our 100th annual reunion. For those of you that are detailed in count, you might think, well, wait a minute, it's been 104 years since the first reunion. Well, that's true. During the Second World War, there were 4 consecutive years that we suspended having a family reunion, and that's what accounts for the disparity there. So we'll turn this over to David.
Okay. This is the David, cousin David from Canada. And you know, this is the summertime here, and our igloos have melted, and we now live in our summer home, and they call it a house. And recently, you know what? We got the internet, and my grandchildren, they tell me if I sit in front of this device here, that then maybe it would take my picture and send my voice, and it would go to the air and to all the way, even as far as to Pennsylvania, way down there in the United States of America. And oh man, I do not understand that, but fortunately I have the grandchildren that do. Hi, this is Dave Brubaker, and I'm not sure who that guy was, but I guess he's my other cousin Dave. And we want to take this as a great opportunity to welcome you for the opportunity to come to Canada and then find out what Canadians are really like. And I'm not sure what your ideas are about Canadians, and but here's a great opportunity to come and find out what we're all about. We look at this opportunity, and we want this to be a family event. And firstly, we want to say there's maybe 2 reasons why you should come to this event. Firstly, this is a fantastic opportunity to catch up on the part of the Brubaker family that maybe isn't as well known to many of you, that left the country, and particularly Pennsylvania, and to seek a new land. It'd be an opportunity to find out why they left the security of family and community to seek out a new home. Also, how they came and some of the challenges that they had and they encountered during that travel, and then also the trials that they encountered after arrival in this new land. And we will also include particularly one of the big obstacles that they incurred when they found out that they did not have clear title to the land that had been purchased, a tract of land, 20,000 acres that was purchased, and that they did not have clear title to that, and how they met that challenge, overcame that challenge. All of these items that I've referred to here will be woven into the program that will be presented in that 100th anniversary of the Brubaker Families of America. The second reason that you will want to come is many of you will take this as an opportunity to package this with some time of vacation and relaxation. And we take this great opportunity for you to have and to give you that opportunity to find out some of what is in a new country, some of the scenery, some of the tourist attractions, and maybe it's a cottage of relaxation, maybe it's fishing, and maybe it's many other things that you do as you like to vacation. And so I will suggest that you follow the video that is going to follow that gives detail on more of this, some of the attractions that you can incur. The thing I want to really emphasize is that the program that we're planning will be a family event. It'll be for all ages, children up to grandparents. And so we encourage you to talk to all of the Brubaker family connections that you know, your brothers, sisters, children, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, friends, whoever that will take this opportunity, this fantastic opportunity, in order to give insight into family history, and then some of the sightseeing that can occur that will bring many memories to you and your family and your friends. We take this again as an opportunity to welcome you, and we look forward to seeing you next year in 2022 at the 100th anniversary of the Brubaker Families of America. Thank you again.
Dave, thank you. And he mentioned about a short video. Some of you may recall this from last year. Those of you that are new jumping in on our get together this year, this will be new for you, and we'll take a few moments to see this video promoting next year's 100th annual event.
Greetings from your Canadian Brubaker cousins. We are excited to be hosting the 100th annual Brubaker Reunion. The reunion will be held in Kitchener, Ontario, which is the location of the first Brubaker homestead in Ontario. It is interesting to note that Kitchener was first called Ebytown, named after Bishop Benjamin Eby, whose wife was Maria Brubaker, the first Brubaker to come to Canada from Pennsylvania. The event will be held at Rockaway Mennonite Collegiate. The program will start on Friday, and there will be something for everyone. The program will be attractive for all ages, and there will be a children's program that will include a tour to the Kitchener Science Centre. There will be interesting presentations and options for leisure time, where one may want to check out one of the local parks. There will be tours to some of the local historical sites, such as Brubaker House, a restored home of a second-generation Canadian Brubaker, Pioneer Village and the tower dedicated to early pioneers from Pennsylvania, the St. Jacob's Market, and the West Montrose Kissing Bridge. The event will conclude with a Sunday morning service at the First Mennonite Church in Kitchener, which was founded by Benjamin Eby and his wife, Maria Brubaker. John Brubaker, Maria's brother, was the first male Brubaker settler and also the first deacon at the church. In the cemetery behind the church, one can find the headstones for many of the first Brubaker pioneers. When coming to Ontario for the reunion, you'll want to take the opportunity to do some sightseeing. at some of the great attractions that Ontario has to offer, such as Niagara Falls, Toronto, and all of the attractions that go with being the third largest metropolitan city in North America. If there are any young people in your group, you will want to consider Canada's Wonderland and all the thrills that it provides. Some of you will want to take advantage of the great vacation opportunities that the Muskoka Lakes region offers. Cottages and resorts are readily available. And then there are those of you that will not want to miss some of the best fishing adventures available anywhere. We will have a team ready to assist you in planning your trip, and we look forward to seeing you in 2022.
Okay, so that's what we have to look forward to for next year. And just so you're aware, in Lancaster County, at least, there is discussion underway about possibly looking at putting together a tour bus or some kind of a group to travel together. And in the future, those of you that are on social media, we might also put this on the website. We might put a poll out to sort of gauge interest, to get an idea how many people might be interested in banding together to go up on a bus, to save having so many cars and vehicles going up. And if that also helps to make it more convenient for those that might be on the fence as far as whether or not they can go, we'll see how that works out. So stay tuned for that. Also, while we're at it, there's been talk off and on, and we see in social media and email, people ask about possibly when there might be another European tour. And we don't have any dates set, but we may have a poll that we'll put out in social media, possibly also in our email blast, that will gauge interest. And if we have enough people interested, we might look at doing that again. For those of you who are familiar, well, whether you're familiar with our website or not, if you go to the Brubaker Family Association website, you'll see buried in there, the last trip was back in 2018. It was about 3 years ago, was our most recent trip. Our Brubaker cousins, Lois Ann Mast and her husband Lamar, put together the tour, and there was a group that had gone back then. So stay tuned. In the future, we'll be polling and gauging interest on that. Now, the next, what I'd like to do is introduce our featured speaker, Linda Brubaker from Lidditz, Pennsylvania. You might recall, those of you who attended the 300th anniversary celebration back in 2017, Linda was one of our featured breakout speakers there. Linda is a master craftsman and guild member of the Historical Society of Early American Decoration. She's also a juried member of the Pennsylvania Guild of Craftsmen and a teacher of early American painting techniques for over 30 years. And hopefully I'm not stealing any of Linda's thunder, but on a more personal connection for her and for those of us that are more closely related to her and her husband, Jim, one of the three folk artists that she will be telling about, Christian Strenga, and I will confess I have no idea if I said that correctly or not. He is of particular interest. He was a Hessian soldier who was captured at the Battle of Trenton, and he helped build the grist mill and live on the property that later became part of the Wayne G. Brubaker farm in East Hempfield Township here in Lancaster County. Wayne was a grandfather of Linda's husband, Jim. And I would also point out that Wayne G. Brubaker, and he's from the B line, he was my great-grandfather. I would like to now turn over the meeting to our featured speaker, Linda. And we have plenty of people here to help out if you have trouble fumbling around through Zoom like I just did. So we'll turn this over to Linda.
Thank you, board members, for inviting me to share with everyone my love of the artistic and historical side of the tin industry and some of what are now called folk artists of our past. The people who chose to come to America and start a new life were looking for religious freedom, and they brought with them styles of decorative arts such as painting, embroidery, and color preferences. Now, imagine no plastic storage containers, no refrigeration, none of the conveniences that we have today. Tin and wooden items were the everyday storage containers and boxes. From the tin industry, which played a big part of artistic decoration in their homes, to schoolmasters' arts, painted wooden items made by farmers is my theme today. Let's take a step back in time and enjoy the history and beauty of everyday life. I'm going to start with American painted tin. And the type of tin that I'm going to just show you a small, just a very, very small picture of is called country painting. Now, the flowering or decorating of tin is the only style, first off, that is iconic to America and to the colonies. All other painted tins, such as stenciled trays, freehand bronze trays, all of those things were painted in England, Wales, and other European countries. This is also referred to as japanning, which means the baking on of the background or of either pigments or an asphaltum, which is a coppery brown finish made from coal tar. Prior to the revolution, the tin business started here. Where's my cursor, Jim? I lost my cursor, sorry. Well, the center here is Berlin, Connecticut. And the tin shop started there. And the first decorated items were imported from England, and there was a very high tax on them. Edward Patterson, a tinsmith, emigrated from Scotland around 1750 and settled in the Berlin, Connecticut area. Around 1760, Patterson agreed to teach his neighbors, and they turned their efforts into their own tin shops and businesses. Edward died in 1787, and his sons continued the flourishing business. So you can see here, the center is where the tin shop started, and then it moved out up from Maine to New York. But I'm going to focus primarily on Bloomfield, Connecticut, and then on the very bottom left-hand side of your screen is the Philadelphia Philly shop. So we're going to talk today, Philadelphia Philly Tin Shop, one of my favorite tin shops of all of them. So we're going to look for characteristics of the Philly Tin Shop. And what do we look for? Well, there's two tin boxes here. The one on the left is an asphaltum background. Now it's aged because this was originally painted around 1810. And so that coppery color has now aged to a deep brownish black.
Come here.
The red tin is a Philadelphia Phillies piece. The differences are the brush strokes and the reds used. The Connecticut here used a lot of vermilions and mustardy yellows, whereas the Pennsylvania piece, their yellows were brighter. When we look at these two pieces here, the little, it's actually a molasses piece, syrup pitcher, molasses syrup pitcher. You can see that coppery color showing through. But how we distinguish this piece on the left as a Connecticut piece and the piece on the right as a Pennsylvania Philly piece is the shade of the red in the decorative design in these flowers on the piece. The Connecticut red is a deeper red, whereas the Philadelphia tends to be brighter, more vermilion-y and more orangey. So Harvey inquired of his brother Oliver. Oliver Philly of Bloomfield, Connecticut, learned the trade at the age of 22. Most of his work was sold in Vermont, but he was more of a middleman who employed a very excellent tinsmith named Oliver Bronson. Philly tin was above the quality of the other tinsmiths at that time, and Mr. Philly opened shops and warehouses for his tin in other areas of the colonies, such as Elizabethtown, New Jersey, Lansingburg, New York, St. Louis, Missouri, LaPierre, Quebec, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, he also shipped out of the New York Philly shop, the Philadelphia shop, and the Bloomfield, Connecticut shop. He shipped his tin to New Orleans and to California. The Philly family really kept very, very detailed records of all their transactions. And this is how we know how far and wide it spread. This piece here is one of my favorites that I've ever come across. And you can see that center of the tray. That is called crystallizing, and it's done with chemicals on a plain piece of tin, and sometimes it just blossoms into the flowers. Can you see that picture?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
It's beautiful.
All right. Yes, it is a beautiful piece. This piece was painted in the Philly shop in Philadelphia somewhere around 1820. It's one of my favorite pieces. I doubt if this piece was ever used. I think it was probably more on display. The center is called the crystallized tin. Now, the Philadelphia shops had their own style of decoration. However, Harvey Philly, who was running the Philadelphia shop, inquired of his brother, who owned all three shops, Oliver, if he would send a painter called Edward Francis to him, as he needed assistance in the japanning and the flowering of the tin. Now, flowering refers to the decorative arts of it. Japanning refers to the backgrounds, such as the asphaltum or the red, or very rarely white, and sometimes yellow backgrounds. The exuberant style and colorful palette of the Pennsylvania Phillies defines that shop as well. They use colors such as orange, blue, burnt sienna, burnt umber, in addition to the standard colors of red, yellow, and blue, the primaries, and mixing them. The exuberance and the colors were appealing to the Germanic markets in Berks, Lebanon, and Lancaster counties. The Philadelphia tin shop did more crystallizing than any other tin shop. These are two candlestick holders, and the one on the left is painted by the Connecticut company, and the one on the right is the Philadelphia. The difference is, when you see them in person, the difference is the shade of the yellow. The Philadelphia yellow, if the tall candle holder would be cleaned, that yellow would be very bright. Right now, it's kind of dull and dirty from a couple hundred years of use. And here's, again, the exuberance of the painting style for the Philadelphia shop. And you can see they've done a pink color on the front tray, as well as using blue. And of course, in the back tray, they have some burnt sienna and burnt umber in there as well. Coffee pots were big time use. The both coffee pots are attributed to the Philadelphia shop, and we know that because of the style of the flowers and the color schemes of these pieces. Once again, these bread pans have crystallized bottoms. Now you can see that the tin did not have quite the flowering as the earlier piece that I showed you. And that's because tin is actually a very thin sheet iron, and tin is a mineral. And so it's melted, and the sheet iron is dipped in this melted tin. And if the sheet iron is hot when they put it in the tin and you crystallize it, it blooms into those fantastic crystallized patterns. Now this tray is a real sweetheart. It's very, very small. It's owned by a friend of mine in New York State. And I love this tray, and I love the flower on it. Very classical style of Philadelphia. But what is so intriguing, as you can see on the right-hand side, the back of the tray, are all these names. These are all Lancaster County names. There are some dates on them on this, and the earliest date that I was able to find is 1835. Now, there is no connection family-wise to any of these names. My friend who owns this tray has done extensive research on all of these names, and there is no family connection. So why are all these names on here? Who knows? But it's really a really charming little piece. From here, we're going to move on to Lancaster County folk artists. The first one we want to talk about is Jonas Weber. And of course, as you can see here, 1810 to 1876. Now, Jonas Weber lived in Five Pointsville, which is northern Lancaster County, and this is between Bowmansville and Terry Hill. He specialized in wooden ware, which supplemented his meager wages as a tenant farm. So let's see what we need to look for to identify a Weber piece. The piece on the right-hand side is the Weber box. The piece on the left is European. So you can see the influence in the colors. You can also see that both pieces have houses on the front, but Weber's is a very classic style. When you see it at an auction, you know exactly that's a Weber. Most craftsmen of that time period were farmers, and their shops were close at hand, somewhere on the farm. Weber's small chests are easily identified today, and most all of his pieces feature a house on the front. This is a three-portion view of a Weber box, showing the front with the landscaping, tulip flower on the top, and tulips on the side. The other side of the box has the same tulip. Here you can see that Weber enjoyed tulips, and he, if we could see the side of this box on the left, you'd definitely find a tulip there. Sometimes the tulip morphed into other flowers, as you can see on the lid of this box that was painted in 1845, I think, the one on the right. And the one on the left, I cannot make out the name on it, but it looks like Jonas Weber. A lot of times people would commission him, and so he would put their name on the piece. Again, two Weber boxes. Notice the difference in the reds. The background paints were often used on another piece as embellishments. So the earlier boxes that we saw blue, and so now that blue shows up on the flowers on the top of the left-hand box and on the buildings of both houses. Weber also made slide lid boxes, and he once again put a house on it, and he had his flowers and his tulips. These slide lid boxes were often used to hold candles. Once again, you can see the style of the tulip is similar on the top of both of these boxes. The leaves are definitely different. but the shape of the tulip has the same feel. Now, the box on the left has no background paint. It is strictly a little pine box that had some shellac put on it and then the decoration. From there, we're going to move into Joseph Len. And Joseph Len lived in Clay, in the south, just south of Clay in Elizabeth Township near the Hammer Creek Mennonite Church. His work is sometimes referred to as Lenware. And this is a piece of his, a saffron box, and you can see on the bottom that he painted this when he was 93 years old, July 29th, 1890. Now, there were other people who also painted these very cheerful little pieces. So we want to take a look and see what makes a Len box a Len. So let's look for the differences. Here are two saffron boxes. The one on the left is attributed to William Carl Heilig, and he lived from 1833 to 1897. He was from Ephrata, Pennsylvania, so not too far from where Joseph Len lived. And there are many similarities of the work. The Heilig piece is a little bit more refined in the flower shape and the leaves. Joseph Len made, besides saffron boxes, he made egg cups. The one on the left is definitely a Len, and I'm guessing that the one on the right, because it has a Heilig feel to it. By feel, I mean there's just certain things, the shape of the strawberry, the color of the vine of this, or the stem of the strawberry, makes me want to think Heilig on that piece. Joseph Len made cups and saucers. And this is a sweet little yellow one. These are sugar buckets and syrup buckets. He had a unique style of grain painting. He had a saffron background or a yellow background, and then he would use a pink and red glaze over top. Len's work, you can almost always identify it if you look for this running border of pussy willows. That's a dead giveaway for a Len piece. Here's two more egg cups. Both of these are Len. And you can see now the difference here in the stem here on the tulip or strawberry on the left box. And again, both of them have the pussy willow running vine. Joseph Len also made seed boxes. Towards the end of his career, he was using decals to in place of some of the finely painted flowers on his box. And you can see that the decal on this seed chest is starting to pull away. But again, the colors are very, very typical Joseph Len, more of that salmon color, whether it's dark or more on the pinky side, that is a definite Len. Here's a lovely little sewing box made by Joseph Len. And again, it's decorated with the decals. In 1889, Bishop Jacob Brubaker of the Mennonite Church visited several times towards the end of Len's life. Bishop Brubaker commented in the Herald of Truth, which is a national publication, or was a national publication of the Mennonite Church, that Len was pleasant to talk with, deeply spiritual, and he still, in his 90s, did exceptional work. Now we're going to move on from here to one of my favorite folk artists, Christian Strenga. And he was born in 1757 to 1828. He's an interesting man. Now, Christian Strenga also came from very close to the areas of the Brubakers. And you can see here in this map, the Altenhasagen up at the top is where Strenga comes from. And of course, the Brubakers were down here in Zurich. So it's about 135 miles difference. Now, Christian Strenga was born in and I'm going to butcher this name, Altenhasagen in Hesse-Kassel, Germany on October 24th, 1757, and he was baptized on the 28th of that month. His parents were Johann Heinrich Strenga and Maria Katharina Romer. Christian was confirmed into the Reformed Church at Altenhasagen on Easter of 1772, which was, I looked it up, April 19th of that year. Now in 1773, Britain was enlisting German Hessian soldiers to help quell the American Revolution. And Christian was a little over the age of 16. At that age, he enlisted in the 5th Company of the Grenadier Regiment under the command of General Johann Gottlieb Rall. And we've all heard of Rall and his troops if we studied the American Revolution. Early in 1776, the regiment sailed for New York and landed there in August of 1776. In November of 1776, they successfully attacked Fort Washington on the northern end of Manhattan. And from there, Rall's troops marched to Trenton, New Jersey. And it was one of 3 companies that camped there in December. In a surprise attack by General George Washington's troops, they were captured. And while he was a prisoner of war and barracked in Lancaster until his exchange for American prisoners, the prisoners were conscripted to local farmers who hired them to build tanneries and mills along Swar's Run between Landisville and Lancaster. Now, in Lancaster is on Duke Street is this plaque here that says that the Long Building was used as military stables. And I have a picture of that Long Building, which is now turned into homes. And the opposite side of the street, which is now a big church, so those buildings were torn down many years ago, was the where the British and the Hessians were imprisoned during that period. Now we're going to do a little hand drawn map here, and we're interested in the colored red area, Jacob Neff's later, and that's Jacob Neff's mill. And you can see if you follow Swar's Run, Sensenig's Mill, Jacob Neff's, John Swar's, and Musselman's Mill and Tannery. Those were the 3 buildings that have been attributed to the conscripted Hessian soldiers. And they worked for these farmers for their food because, well, things weren't run the way they are today. Christian Strenga, now Jacob, what I wanted to say about Jacob Neff's mill, that was the one that was later purchased by Wayne G. Brubaker in the early 1900s. Now, once Strenga returned to the British and General Rall, his regiment was sent south to occupy Savannah, Georgia from 1778 until the end of the war. After a 1779 attack by rebels on their position at Sono Ferry, South Carolina, Strenga was promoted to Führerwecker. Now that is somebody who's in charge of cannons and cannonballs and the powder. In October of 1783, he was listed as being on leave when the company returned to Hesse-Kassel to be mustered out, and he was marooned in the New Republic. By the late 1780s, he had made his way north to Lancaster County, which reminded him of his homeland in Germany. He resided in what historians believe was the tenant farmhouse on the then owned farm and mill operation of Jacob Neff along Swar's Run, just off the old Harrisburg Pike along the Old Mill Road, east of Landisville. While living in Hempfield Township on the Jacob Neff farm, he married and had a daughter, but both of them died in 1789. While there, he was also earning a living as schoolmaster and a scrivener. Later, he moved to East Petersburg on a farm of the Benjamin Hershey farm, where he became schoolmaster of that neighboring school, which later became the town of East Petersburg. So this is one of Christian Strenga's, what we call Proctor today. And it has the alphabet on it. This was probably done for a school student to show them how to make the letters and the numbers and the writing on it. This one is part of the collection of the Philadelphia Art Museum. So now let's take a look and see how we can attribute somebody's work to them that never signed their pieces, because Christian Strenga rarely signed a piece, but there are clues to tell us how we know them. But first, let's go back as you enjoy this picture. Well, he bought a house, or he moved to East Petersburg area, and he was a schoolmaster. And as a schoolmaster, he produced many Vorschrifts, which are writing examples, family records such as Geburts and Hochsteins, Haussagens, which is a house blessing, and bookmarks for students as merit rewards. In 1811, he was appointed Justice of the Peace in what is now East Petersburg. So this little Proctor here is actually in a book, the inside cover of a book. And one of the identifying marks of a Christian Strenga is the shape of that vase that those tulips are resting in. Also, he tended to use a three-section leaf in yellow and red on a lot of his works. This is attributed to Strenga as well. And once again, we know that because of the bird. He was very stylized in his birds. And this one was painted in 1821. So he was still working at that time. When we go back, if we would go back to that, or think about that alphabet piece, the very first piece, that one was painted when he was a prisoner, because at that time period, he would always have the capital letters in a row first, A through Z, and then he would follow by the lowercase. Later in his career, he would put the capital A and then the small letter A afterwards. Here's another one. Once again, the stylized bird, the vase, and the characteristic three-section leaf of yellow and red. Isn't that beautiful? I'd love to have a book like that with that hiding in it. Quite lovely. Here's some more of his pieces that are attributed because of the stylized bird. And the piece in 1803, again, you can just see it shouts Strenga. Now here's the same vase, the same three-section leaves with different tulips. There are at least 3 known complicated paper cutting Proctor love letters created by Strenga for suitors to give their beloveds. And he was commissioned to do these. One is owned by the East Petersburg Historical Society, and the other, wait a minute. The one is in Lancaster at that historical society, and there are 2 at the Philadelphia Art Museum. So I want to thank you all for listening to me share about the love of my art life. Any questions?
I would like to ask a question, if I may.
Sure.
This is something that my mom did in 1947.
Yes.
I was wondering, should one attempt to clean these, or better just dust it and not do anything?
I think dust it and don't do anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she was 15 years old when she painted that.
Yes, and so we don't know how she prepared the background, before she put the design on.
Okay, so just dust it. Okay.
Yeah, just dust it and love it as is.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Doug, I'll turn this back to you.
Well, before we do that, Linda, I wanted to ask you,
Yes.
how many, I'm pretty art illiterate, of any kind of art. How long, how much, I guess, training? When I look at these pieces that you shared, I can't imagine the detail and the level of skill that it takes to do something like that. How long would somebody apprentice at this before going out on their own? Or how long does it take, I guess, basically to get good, whatever the definition of good is, at some of this work?
Well, if we think back about the very first section of the talk, the country painting or the American painted tinware, you would have a bunch of apprentices working in your shop. There would be ones that would just do nothing but striping, and that's where you would apprentice first, doing the striping, the pin striping on the piece. And once you mastered that, then they would teach you how to put brush strokes on. But before even that, they had you mixing paint, because paints did not come in a tube or a can like what we have today. It was a pigment, a solid cake. They would take a knife and chip out what they wanted. They would put it in a mortar or in a pestle and grind it up and add linseed oil and maybe some varnish to it. So that's where you would start first, and you would gradually work up to being a painter of the decoration.
What would they use for brushes?
Well, they made their own brushes, actually, and the really good ones are made out of squirrel hair. So if you want to get rid of some squirrels, you can always take the hairs from their tails. They make great brushes, And the hairs were packed real tight in a quill of a goose feathers from their wings, and they would cut those and pack just strand after strand these hairs through them in order to make a brush. And then they would take a little piece of wire, wrap it, and the quill would compress in and hold the hairs there.
Linda, isn't there a famous Brubaker who was the one who did fractors?
That I don't know.
And I think he was an Abraham Brubaker. Does anybody know?
We do have that listed somewhere. I'll defer to our historian Elaine. there was I think a Jacob Brubaker who was very well known, and one of our cousins to this day is a very skilled fraktur artist. We had her. Somebody help me out here. I'm blanking out on her name, but she's from the New Holland area, and she was a featured speaker several years ago at one of our annual reunions.
Doug, this is Pam. Her name is Lynn Summers.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know somewhere I have it written that he was, I think, one of my ancestors, and he was quite famous as a fractor. But I don't have it right here on at my fingertips. But
If you go back, and I would encourage all of you, if you go to the Family Association website, brubakerfamilies.org, in the history of the family reunion, we have a feature on Lynn Summer, and I think it also harkens back to that Brubaker ancestor who was a skilled fractur artist back in the day.
I recall one of the Pennsylvania Mennonite Heritage issues many years back featured on the cover page the fractur artist Jacob. I don't remember what year it would have been.
thank you.
There was another Jacob who was a wood turner, I think from Mount Joy, and he's no longer living. I think part of his story is that his workshop burnt to the ground, and that was quite a stressful ordeal for him. I understand he has some of his work at a woodturners museum in Philadelphia.
And one of his progeny, I believe his name is Jay Brubaker, was a featured speaker several years ago at the family reunion, and he is carrying on that tradition to this day with the saffron boxes, I believe, patterned after what his ancestor did. I think it might have been his, I forget, great grandfather. I don't recall, but we have that in the website also. If anybody gets a chance, feel free to roam around and see what you can find out in the Family Association website. And if you have anything new to add, we're always open to adding more to it to make it available for all to see.
The Jacob Brubaker you're talking about is actually Jacob Nisley Brubaker. He's a very prominent bishop in the church back in late 1800s. But what's interesting is he also was one of the earlier bishops that promoted speaking English in church sermons. This is back in the 1880s, around that time. He also was one of the earlier persons that encouraged Sunday school classes, which was not part of the worship service up until the 1850s, 1860s or so. So he was a very prominent person who was at the cutting edge of a lot of things in his life, a very talented person as well.
I understand that the focus here on this presentation, Linda, was on painting.
Yes.
Some of the saffron boxes that you showed, I assume, were wood boxes that were turned on a lathe, probably.
Yes, they were. Yes.
Linda, by your estimation, how many with the tin in this day and age? It reminds me that it's a dying art, and you might be the last of the experts and the skilled craftsmen out there. How many people do you believe, or maybe actually know a specific number, how many still do this yet?
I belong to an organization called the Historical Society of Early American Decoration, and there's over 400 of us. And that organization their focus is to preserve the styles of painted tin and art styles like the fractur and tin painting, gold leaf work, bronzings and stenciling like Hitchcock chairs. So we focus on that. And so there's about 400 of us out here, mostly on the East Coast. And so our big meeting's going to come up next month in September, and we'll all get together. Now, Jim, would you get me a piece of my tin, please, out of the dining room? So as a master craftsman, I have had to go through a series of about 13 different steps, and I had to become proficient in 13 different styles of this painted tin. So I'll show you, and you have to get awards. And your work is presented before a group of people, and they understand, they have a lot of knowledge on the antiques, and so they analyze it. And so I have gone through the steps and have received many A's actually in the country painting. And I'm working on, this is one of my crook neck pops, and you can see that coppery color. And this is a Philadelphia Philly design. Here, I'll see. I never know where a camera is on these things. So there's the exuberant flower and leaf pattern.
Click on her. Should it get bigger?
And all the different brush strokes. The top is there. That's what the top looks like. So that's a country painted piece. And this is another Philadelphia piece. And a lot of bright colors on this, and interesting white strokes across the front of that lid, which is kind of unusual that they took their white background of the design and threw brush strokes across the front. But there was no design on the side of this box. So most of the time when I paint a piece, I'm working from an original. Now this one's called Metal Leaf with country style of painting. This is gold leaf actually on here with over painting. And so I'll get that in closer. And all those little white crosshatch lines are done with a striping brush. So there's a bunch of us that do this stuff. We're nuts. We're nuts. Because it's not like working with acrylics where you can sit down and paint something in a day or so. This takes weeks to do a piece. Jim, grab a saffron box.
You just answered my question. I was going to ask how long it takes to do something like that box.
Well, some of my pieces take months, actually. How about a salmon colored one? Now, I too paint saffron boxes. And this is one of mine that I copied from a Len piece. And here's the iconic salmon pink with the Pussy Willow band. So I enjoy this. Any other questions?
Hearing none, then Linda, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
We're glad to have you a part of this. And I'm still, my wife here is an artist, and she's prattling away all kinds of questions and comments that she has here. And I'm just in awe because I think about the time it takes to do that. And then I think about I'm lucky if I can walk in a straight line, let alone do some of the fine motor skilled types of things that you're doing on those trays and those boxes. I can't begin to imagine. I think we truly have a real artist in our midst. And well, in the larger Brubaker family, we have a lot of talented people, and we're very blessed. We're glad to have you also, and thank you for sharing with us
Thank
today.
you. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
As we continue, I wanted to take a moment and just ask, I see Jerry Packman on my screen here, and Jerry, I think you're from Rhode Island, if I remember right. I'm curious, who is our geographically our reunion here electronically is centering out of Lancaster County, but I'm just curious of our participants, who's geographically the furthest away? I think I see Dave out in Southern California, cousin Dave. And I see Barbara just texted in from Texas. And of course, we got cousin David up in Ontario.
And the Kaisers.
Where are the Kaisers from?
Kaisers are from Texas, and
You have Washington State.
That's
They
right.
can add in the chat where they're from. If they add in the chat, you can see all the different states.
The Kaisers are not on.
Luann Neftra, thanks for that's cousin Luann there. She's going by Nefta.
I'm Patricia. I'm from Texas.
Texas also, great. If you get a chance, go ahead and find the chat button in the middle bottom of your screen and weigh in with where you're from. This will also help us get an idea of a count of how many participants we have.
Worth something.
Well, this about wraps up our reunion, our online reunion for today. Again, I would encourage folks, if you have a social media presence, go to Facebook. We have 3 different pages, the Brubaker Families of America. There's also one called It's Great to Be Brubaker. And there's a third one just called Brubaker. And go ahead and join up with them if you haven't. Also, we had some people asking, just as a reminder, next year's 100th annual reunion will be August 5th through the 7th. If I looked at my calendar correctly, that's Friday through Sunday in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And stay tuned as more features are firmed up. We will be periodically letting information out. And again, one of those will be gauging interest to see if it's worth our while to get enough people to take a bus up to Kitchener. Also, if you're not a part of our email list, go to our website, and sooner or later you'll see a box pop up on the website asking you to go ahead and sign in. We're happy and glad to take additional participants and members of the larger family and add you to our list. What we're going to do here as we close out, we're going to, and I'll defer to Luann, how much time would we have on here? What I'm interested in doing is those of you that are interested in sticking around for a few minutes, if you'd like to share and get together, if you have any questions. On my gallery screen, the Family Association historian Elaine Rankin is up in my upper left-hand corner. I'm not quite sure where she shows up on your screen, but she'll be on hand also. And we're going to say thank you and close this out. I'll go back to Luann. Do we have any kind of a time limit?
I have an end time of 5:30.
Okay. Okay. So it's.
So it should stay live till then.
Yeah, it's 4:30 now. Not that we have to stay on that long, but we're happy to open up for additional sharing, questions, and we'll go from there. And at this point, it's 4:30, and officially we'll end the official meeting. We say thank you to everyone. We're glad to have you a part of the festivities this afternoon, and we're looking forward to next year when hopefully we'll be, well, we're going to speak it into existence. We're going to be meeting in person up in Ontario. There's cousin Dave giving a thumbs up. We're looking forward, and cousin Roger also. we're looking forward. In fact, I need to ask though, Roger, are you planning on riding bike up from Lancaster?
It's under consideration.
I thought it might be. Roger is a superior bicycle rider for anybody of any age. He's outstanding. Thank you to everyone. Feel free to stick around as long as you would like up till 5:30.
Thank you, Doug, for hosting the meeting too. And
I'll defer to Luann. She's the one that made this all happen between her and Dr. Ken Brubaker, our former board chair, chair emeritus. They did most of the work here. All I did was flap my gums.
Not true, Doug. You did a lot of work. I just click and created a link.
Thank you so much.
Is cousin Dave still on there from Southern California? I see him
Yeah.
down there. Wave to us, Dave. Yeah, there he is.
Still here.
Hey,
I really enjoyed the art and the tins. And I remember my dad brought some of those trays with him from Lancaster, and we had them in our home when I was growing up. So I'm going to see if I can go through the storage and see if I can find them. I thought, who would take the time to paint those cans? Yeah, fortunately, we didn't play kick the can with them. We actually kept them, and we had the pots, and now I know the story. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for the story. It means a lot when you look at art and you can know the story and the meaning. So it's a gift to be here with all the Brew crew. And I know my son was on here for a while. He may still be. He's up in Bel Air, California, and he just got back from Scotland, where he played St. Andrew golf, St. Andrews, and all the old courses there. But there's a lot of Brubakers out here on the West Coast. So one day you will have to have a reunion out here. Thanks so much for giving me a chance to share. Good to see everybody.
Dave, so it's good to hear from you playing kick the tin can when you were a kid. We used to do that at home too, so I don't know if that's a Swiss-German game that was brought over from Switzerland or
I don't know
where your dad or somebody must have did a good job carrying out the West Coast.
Oh, I'm looking right now. There's JB. That's Jay Brubaker, my son. And,
I thought it was. Yeah, it looked like it.
Yeah,
Hi, Jay.
you know.
Hey, Ken. Good to see you.
Absolutely. You bet. Hope to see you next year. Bring your kids up there and go fishing. Maybe one more thing I might add is that if everyone can do their part to prevent the COVID from spreading, please do your part so we don't have to have any more virtual meetings.
Amen.
Yeah.
We heard some people talking and asking about the different branches of the larger Brubaker family tree. If you go to the Family Association website, there is a screen in there somewhere with the Brubaker name, and it tells about also the different branches of the larger family. And a lot of that work was started by Ferris Brubaker. Ferris Brubaker Gibble was his name. Also, I believe Jacob Brubaker was a genealogist in the family. So you can, if you're familiar with what branch of the larger tree you're in, it more than likely is listed on that page on the Family Association website.
Or I could tell you.
Yes, Elaine can tell you that also.
All I have to know is your grandparents, and I work my way backwards.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Elaine, I think I emailed you or something because I cannot connect with the main branches of the A, B, C, and D.
All right.
I'm the one that put the pictures on the Brubaker website. was that you that I contacted?
I don't know. I get contacted by so many people.
Okay,
I'd have to go back. I have to
this
go back
was-
and look.
Okay, this was John Brubaker and his wife and Peter and Catherine.
Well, my last count, I had like 328 John Brubakers. So everyone has to be a little bit more specific than John Brubaker.
I can because they came to Kansas.
Okay.
And John was a pastor at the Washington Creek Church. And so he came to Kansas and passed away here. So we do have Brubakers. Of course, I live in Texas now, grew up in Kansas. So there's Brubakers in Kansas.
Well, if you go to the Brubaker website, you can fill in the form that gives me all the information you have, and then I can contact you and give you what information I have on your family. Last count, I'm at 23,000 Brubakers in my database. So like I said, 300 and some Johns.
Yes. This is my husband's family. Really.
Okay.
So, but he's not interested in. I've been doing it for over about 35 years. So, yeah.
Okay. Like I said,
I will
anybody.
do that.
Yeah, anybody who wants to find out about their family, they have some brick walls, you can try and email me with what you have, and then I've checked my database and see where I can continue and help you out.
Well, does all the Brubakers descend from Hans?
Well, the Hans of 1717 is the beginning of the American Brubakers, but we know that by going back 3 more generations, most everybody is coming from that same 3 or 4 brothers. We know that they're all related. Like we said, coming out of Zurich, it's all the same Brubakers, Pubakers, all the way back. But finding the actual documents, I think Marty has gone back to actual documents for the ones prior to America. I've been pretty much consistent with keeping in America because in Lancaster County, there are so many documents that I can get access to, either at the courthouse or the historical societies. So.
Okay. Thank you.
My name's Marvin Brubaker, and I live in Cambridge, Ontario, which is near you. So if I can help you serve in the Canadian, this is my first time being on. I'll tell you a really quick, funny story. I went to seminary in Tennessee and went through an MDiv program 3 years and sat in the same class with the same guy all 3 years. We were in every class together. His name was Wayne Haston. Wayne was on your trip over to Germany.
Yes, he was. I got to know him very well. Great story.
He's a great guy. Anyway, he kept telling me he had a background. It was like Heinz 57, and Scottish and this, and never mentioned any German. And of course, I was telling about all my history, with the old Order of Mennonites here. My grandfather never did everything but a horse and buggy. But anyway, we used to laugh about the difference. And not too long ago, he got on your website. I don't know, he started doing some research and he found out he and I are relatives. It's a crazy story. And so then he went on this trip, but by the time he told me about it, it was already full. And so anyway, nice to meet all you folks, and realize I didn't know there's 23,000. What did you say? How many thousands of us?
Well, in my database, I don't have all the Brubakers, but I have 23,000 in my database.
Yeah, well, I come from a fairly large family, but anyway, nice to meet you. And, maybe I'll meet some of you in person, but my wife and I like going down to Lancaster County and just driving around, but I've never met any of you down there. Anyway, that's the Wayne Hastings story. And some of you met him on the trip over to Switzerland.
Well,
And
Marvin, that Wayne Haston story is even more interesting beyond that. I don't know if he told you or not, but he couldn't understand Haston. Where did that ever come from?
right. Yeah,
Well,
he's
it
talking
turns out it
about-
comes from Haston. Haston is
right.
a Swiss German name, and there was a Brubaker married a Haston a number of generations ago. So that's why you're related, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have to go back that far, but I never even thought about it myself. I thought, Haston, that didn't make any sense. Then he said, well, no, it's Easton. And so you can understand why Brubaker spelled 20 different ways. I mean, around here, we have quite a few people that are B-R-E-W. Well, that's the way, if someone said their name is Brubaker, that's what I would spell, B-R-E-W, B-A-K-E-R. So I'm sure there's all kinds of stories behind those name changes too. But yeah, he's a wonderful person. And he's also a graduate of a seminary too. I'm not sure if that's in Kentucky or not.
Oh, in Tennessee. Yeah, we went to the same school in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I was trying to get him hooked up. We have a number of Heastons around here, so
yeah.
I didn't do so. He's got hooked up with the Heastons too. So great, good story though.
Yeah. Anyway,
Just want to say hi to Ken Fair, who just logged in on there.
I had a question for Linda, if I may. Linda, in your research, do you remember ever having encountered a Zoe Kaufman? Zoe and Henry Kaufman wrote an early history of Pennsylvania Dutch art. And she was my mother's cousin, and therefore a Brubaker. Her grandmother was Mary Brubaker Ely. But they worked together, she and her husband Henry, to do a great deal of Pennsylvania Dutch art history. She died in 1966, and he continued on well into his 90s and left his collection to the Lancaster Historical Society. I think for a while they had a wing named for him, but she, like you, specialized in Pennsylvania Dutch art. She did fractors and designs around those kinds of things. I just wondered if you were familiar with her.
I've probably run across her publication and have read it because my library is quite extensive.
I'm always looking for someone who knew them. They were sort of a widely known Lancaster County couple, and they didn't have any children. We had a very small family, and I was very close to both of them. She had an impact on me. I have a lovely fractor, which she made for me when I was born, which I treasure. And I've always treasured her Pennsylvania Dutch art. He was an expert in the Kentucky rifle, probably what he was best known for. And later on, I think he wrote 17 books, all with Pennsylvania Dutch themes. But so I always ask, and I know her mother, whose name was also Zoe, was very active with the Brubaker family. So, but we're talking about going back to the generation beyond the grandparents, you know, now looking at 100 years ago. Gee, anybody remember?
This is Carolyn Pearson from San Antonio, Texas. Linda, I would like to thank you for that little tile that sits on our mantle to this day, the swan, and thank you for taking me on the tour. It was wonderful to hear more of your expertise today. And my grandmother, her cousin, came to Lancaster to the Brubaker Family Reunion, and then she went to Switzerland and did research in Switzerland and Germany. So I do have information that she has gleaned that I'm willing to share. I'm thankful she did that. She passed on information to us that we did not know about the Brubakers until she did that. Then another cousin's wife passed on information. She has a whole room of family history research, and they went to Lancaster to the family reunion. And we thank you all for paying attention to San Antonio. And if we could go to Canada, that would be fine. We're glad to be with you today this way. Thank you.
Well, Carolyn, it was such a fun time spending that day with you over in Doylestown. Yeah, I had a good time.
Me too. Thanks. It's good to see you and hear you again.
Thank you.
I just want to say I did find this about the Brubaker or Brubacher fracture. Man, January 1986 in the Pennsylvania Mennonite Heritage. So there's where it
Okay.
mentions him. Just so in case anybody was interested. Hans Jacob Brubacher. And he died in 1755. He died. So that's a Brubaker connection to the fracture thing. So just wanted to, when they mentioned that, I have all of mine over there. I went and I found it.
Well organized.
In some things. In genealogy, I am.
Something we're really interested in trying to catch up with. There was a West Coast Brubaker family reunion, and our cousins out in Southern California. If you cross paths with anybody that knows anything about it, we would love to learn more about it. There's information in the Lancaster Mennonite Historical Society. We've posted a little bit of it on at least one of the Facebook pages. But if anybody has anything, we'd love to learn more about how that got started, how long it lasted, just to add that or to fill out what's in the record for that. And speaking of reunions, we know there's family reunions across the country, and we would love to somehow make mention or give recognition to them on the Family Association website, because it doesn't have to, as you heard, Elaine's got 23 some odd thousand names in the database. And we know we have cousins as far away as Brazil, Australia, Italy, and the Netherlands. And we want to increase the footprint and make sure that it's not just Lancaster County centric, although this is the point of origin here in North America anyway. I see cousin Sam Brubaker. If I remember right, you're down where in North Carolina? I don't know if he's.
Yes, I am.
Very good. Welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we decided we'd chime in and see what was going on with the rest of the Brubaker clan. And great presentation by Linda. And we're hoping to make plans for a Canada trip.
Sam, this is Ken Brubaker. What part of North Carolina do you live in?
Hey, Ken, we're in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Okay, because I just met with a Dave Brubaker from Raleigh, North Carolina. He came up here with his family, and actually came up with his granddaughter and wanted to give her a buggy ride. She wanted to have a buggy ride, and she had a great buggy ride. Yeah, so and I have a brother down there, Harold Brubaker in Asheboro.
Yeah, Harold was one of the state representatives, was he not?
Yeah, that's correct. He was in politics for much of his life.
Yeah, yep.
He's not the only Brubaker in politics. Doug plays around with a little bit.
Nah, I think I'm done. My turn. I'm a big believer. Take your turn, serve the community, get out of the way, and let somebody else do it.
Yeah, yep. I've actually held a position or two myself, and it's best to back away from it and let someone a little younger take over.
Carolyn again from San Antonio. I would just like to say that my maternal grandmother's grandmother was a Brubaker. And at one point, you know, we don't have any more Brubakers since Catherine Brubaker married that John, that's an orphan that went to Ohio. We came back and Wes researched. He knows more about John and Catherine in Ohio and where they lived and tried to connect it, but he never could figure it out, Elaine. So we're still one of those orphans that you call us. And I just want to say that Mama Arrington was the granddaughter of Catherine Brubaker and Mr. Burton, Willie Calvin. And at one point, she kept the family reunion going. And we have it every year. I'm going to be 75 this year. That's been going on here in Texas my entire life. And so it meets at my brother's, and he's a Mullins. So because of us women marrying these other people, we can't be called Brubakers anymore. But that family reunion that's related to y'all is still going on in Abilene, Texas.
Carolyn, I'm Ken again. I'm helping the Brubaker cause out in Texas. I do have a daughter married to a Fuhrer, and they live in Austin, Texas area, and they have 5 children. So they're Fuhrers, but they're all Brubakers too.
They're Brubakers still. Oh, good, because our son is coming from Austin with his family tomorrow.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Get them in touch. They can know their cousins.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm kind of sad to see that we don't have anybody from Virginia. I was waiting to see if we had a Virginia Brubaker come online. We still have our problem with a little lost tombstone of Gillian Brubaker. He's down in Florida and he needs to come home to Virginia. I'm still trying to find someone who has connections to that family, to that graveyard, so we can bring Gideon home and put him back in place next to his family, his mom, his dad, and his sister. We still have that problem. Pandemic kind of stopped us from going down to Florida to go get the stone. I talked to the guy who's holding it for us, faithfully holding it for us till somebody comes to get it. So anybody knows anybody around Virginia, like somebody down there in North Carolina might know a Virginia one. We're just trying to find somebody who would know. It's the White House Cemetery and in Virginia. So that's where we need to get Gideon back to. So just to let anybody know, we still need help with that.
To try to pinpoint that a little further, the White House Cemetery, White House Brubaker Cemetery is over outside of Luray. So
correct.
You know anybody in the Luray, Virginia area? I guess worse comes to worse, if our friend Mr. DiPaolo, who has the tombstone, if we have to, we can take it off his hands, and I know somebody else in Florida that can hang on to it, but if it's in his way. But worst comes to worst, maybe we'll do a drive-by and just take it and prop it against his parents' stone. I'm not sure what else we're going to be able to do if we can't track somebody down.
Correct.
Hi, this is Janelle. I know since I've researched some of our family history and know that a branch of our Brubakers went to Virginia, on this trip that we're going to be taking, we plan on going through Luray.
Well, there's a little cemetery called White House.
Okay.
And Gideon's parents, father and mother and sister, and the sister stone looks exactly like Gideon, so we know it's the right place. We have no idea how Gideon stone went from Virginia all the way down to Florida, and that's where it was found in the sand when this guy took over this house. So we're trying to find a way to get Gideon home back to his family.
I'll just take a minute this is Mary Jefferson. I just wanted to say hello to my cousin, who I see is also attending, and I haven't seen her in a very long time. Hi, Barbara.
Is Janie here today from Lancaster?
I didn't hear. Who were you asking?
Janie. Are you from California, Doug?
Am I? No, I've got cousins in Orange County and San Diego, but no, I'm not from California. I'm in Lancaster
Okay, 2
County.
years ago, when we were in Pennsylvania, Janie's brother spoke. Help us, treasurer, what's his name that came here? Roger. Yeah.
Well, once again, I would like to thank everybody. Really, really enjoyed being with you all, and looking forward to seeing you in person maybe next year.
Well, that would be wonderful. This is Dave Brubaker in Palm Desert, California. And I did want to let you all know that I did wear the team uniform here today. That is the Brubaker t-shirt that I bought online. If you
I have it too, Dave.
Oh, there you go. Wait a minute, Ken. That's my t-shirt. I left it in Lancaster a couple of years ago.
we got a couple more here.
Yeah, it's yeah, no, it's wonderful. I wear it around town and people say, where did you get that crest on there? And I said, it's a long story, but a good one.
Dave's doing a good job recruiting Brubakers for us. He got us in contact with the Brubaker family on the Western Coast, of whom was Butt Brubaker. He was an interesting person. He was very engaged in sporting activities. He was a teacher for most of his career, but he was an NFL umpire referee for a number of years. So we're getting acquainted with that family, and hopefully we're going to see him in our reunion, our in-person reunion, a couple years later if it works out. So keep working on it, Dave. There's more down there, by the way, in California.
So I'm wearing my t-shirt so that all the Brubakers in Southern California can see the t-shirt and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm a Brubaker too, right? And actually, Bud Brubaker's grandson, Gregory, whom I've met now in Redondo Beach, lives in Japan. So we actually have a Brubaker that's a teacher over in Japan, and he has a son, Anthony Brubaker. So we are worldwide almost.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So, keep up good work, Dave.
So there was a Brubaker that designed a dune buggy in Southern California in the 1970s. There was a Brubaker that owned an interest in a racetrack around the Los Angeles in Southern California. There's another Brubaker. There's quite a few of them out there.
Yep, and my dad was Brubaker Studebaker. He actually he had a dealership in the 50s, and so we were in the automobile business. I know that for sure.
One of the Brubakers from the county where my Brubaker ancestors were from after they came here from Lancaster in Western Pennsylvania married into the Brubakers, into the Studebaker family in Indiana. Yeah, so there's a lot of connections is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Wow. Some wonderful stories.
Dave, you make mention about the t-shirt. If you go online to the association website, I believe we still do have some t-shirts available. There's also some
20.
other, I think I heard
20.
Plenty.
That's our merchandising person.
Is that Laura?
That's Laura. Yep. Yeah. She hides behind her daughter Gabby's name there on the screen. Just so if anybody is interested, we're toying around with the idea of getting license plates. We've gotten some people contact us on social media asking, is there such a thing as a Brubaker license plate with the family crest on it? So we're doing some research to find out what it would cost to have something like that available. And so stay tuned. We might have, it'd be, I guess, for lack of a better description, be like a vanity plate. It'd be the size of a license plate. For those of you who live in states that don't require a plate on both the front and the back, you can put it on the front, be the size of a typical license plate. And it would most likely have the family crest and then Brubaker on it or something similar to that.
I'll buy the first one right now.
Dave's very good in marketing, so he'll do the marketing for us.
Oh yeah, I'll do it for you. That's a great idea. I love it. Well, I can show you a quick picture of the newest Brubakers. When I I turn off my screen, you can see Justin Brubaker and Elise Brubaker. And this is a photo that I got from my daughter-in-law just a week ago. Look at these two little rascals. There they are. So there's a new generation of Brubakers coming up here on the West Coast.
Yeah, I have 7 grandsons myself.
Oh, good for you. That's great.
Yeah.
Your boys are carrying on the name.
Yeah, for sure.
Linda, where's the best place to see the Philly tin art and fractor painting when we come through that area? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. Well, most historical museums around here have proctors. The Philadelphia Art Museum has a large early American wing, and there are a number of proctors there.
Okay.
But you can always call me, and if you're interested, stop by. I can show you things. I have a lot of antiques here. And some reproduction proctors.
Great, I'll get in touch.
All right.
Roger, how was your bike ride in San Antonio, and where did you ride last? Maybe he left.
Yeah, I don't see Roger on here. He may have left.
He's probably out biking.
I see his name still showing up as a participant.
He might be muted.
Yeah.
Elaine, where in Florida is the tombstone? There's a question in the chat about that, and I don't recall.
I think it's Port Charlotte.
Yes, that's right. It's Port Charlotte, south of Fort Myers, or right near Fort Myers.
Right. There's a guy named Tom DiPaolo found it in his yard, buried.
Really?
Yeah, it was buried. Doug, on our website, do we still have that newscast of the newscast of Tom Paulo finding that stone? Is that on our website?
Yes, I think if you look under press and media, it'll probably show up in that section on the website.
Yeah, there's a newspaper or newscast of Tom DiPaolo finding the stone, and the famous person he mentions is the historian. So we don't know who that is, but there's a historian mentioned that gave him the information on Gideon's family. So if you have the time, go onto the website and find that little newscast. It's kind of cute. And Tom DiPaolo asked me not more than a month ago if we are going to follow up with the newscast people to the end result of Gideon. And I said, I don't know at this point. Right now, it seems like Florida is the hotbed of places you don't want to go. Well, if there's no more questions for me, historian, I'm going to sign off, and thank you. I liked seeing everybody, and I would like to hear from you. And like I said, if you want to know about your family line, just give me a shout, and I'll see what I can find.
What email address can they use, Elaine?
Well, if they use the Brubaker website and it goes to the historian, I can get it that way. But if they want to get a hold of me, I don't know. Can I put it on the? I'm trying to think. Can I put it on the website?
You can put it in the chat. You can put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat.
I will put it in the chat for you. How's
There you
that? Okay.
Elaine, I
I
already
will do.
emailed my sister and I. This is Craig Brubaker, and I'm out in Seattle area.
Yeah, Craig.
We had your email from previous communications, so I had given you my great grandfather and my grandfather's names, so that you could help us connect with the right line.
Did I get back to you?
No, I just sent it to you just a few minutes
Oh,
ago.
just sent it to me. Okay, I didn't get back to you yet.
My sister line with too, and I figured I would send it right away, just since I didn't know it.
Well, like I said, I talk to so many people that from one day to the next, I have to kind of sort my emails for which ones I have to still answer.
Well,
So,
I'm grateful for that, because it's we felt isolated living out in California for so many years, and I've always heard about the big family gatherings out there, but never had a chance to link up. So this has been fun for us too.
Good.
So I was watching PBS here in Arkansas, and there was a Susan Brubaker Knapp in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, who does a sewing program. Quilts, sewing. Has her name ever come up?
I think I've heard of her, but I don't remember connecting her to any Brubaker family tree.
Okay. I was just curious because her name comes across either at the beginning or the end of the program. And of course the Brubaker jumped out at me, and she was from, I think she said in her bio, she is from Pennsylvania originally, but she's has been in North Carolina for quite some time, but was born and raised in Pennsylvania.
We had reached out to her to see if we could get her to join us for the 300th anniversary event as a speaker several years ago. And it didn't work out with the schedules to be able to arrange for that.
Okay. Okay.
One thing I was just thinking about when you mentioned about the Brubakers out in California, Doug, it occurs to me that the Brethren Christ Church started a college in Upland, California. Does that ring a bell to anybody here? I mean, I would suspect if the same Brubakers out there to this day, that would be in that area.
We lived close to Upland area years ago, but I'm familiar with the Upland area for sure.
Yes, as a Messiah College grad, there are close connections and a long relationship between that Upland College, I think it was called, and it's now Messiah University in Grantham, Pennsylvania, just south of Harrisburg. In fact, the Brubaker Family Reunion was held several times in Grantham. Right. Well, in this day, Grantham is a suburb of the campus of Messiah University. It's a tiny little village, but the Brubaker Family Reunion held their reunion there several times over the years.
Well, I'll be going through Clinton, Missouri in a couple of weeks, and I'm stopping at the Henry County Courthouse and getting a copy of my dad's birth certificate. And I plan on trying to collect as much information on Granddad as well, because we know Granddad was born in Missouri, and so was Mildred. So I'll see what I can find on any other Brubakers in the area.
What part of Missouri?
And that's right next door to Kansas.
Yes, it is.
There's quite a few Brubakers living in Lawrence, Kansas, where Kansas University is. I'm going to go. I want to say I've really enjoyed it. This is the first time that I didn't even know that you guys existed. And so I'm hoping maybe we can come next year. So I'm glad to meet you all. I don't know why my picture's not on there, but so what? But thank you for all the information. And Elaine, I will get with you. I'm going to chat right now.
I've posted my email address for anybody that's interested. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
And Patricia, we're glad to have you, and we look forward to you joining us again.
Thank you. And I go by Pat, really.
As this begins to wind down soon, I'm going to put a screen share up with our web address and some other pertinent information, just so that you have it if you want to write it down or refer to it later.